Pump it up. Pump it up.
Hello, world, and welcome to part one of our series on love and relationships in 2021. We jump off live episode number 34. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and also hit the notification bell. Team Jump Off is joined tonight by Mike and Dr. Zoe. Welcome to our guest.
Hey.
Yes, and we're going to take it over to that Deem and Dave with the topic.
Yeah, I have a little problems over there, Jeff, so we'll clean it up here. Thanks, everybody, for jumping on to Jump Off Live. We're gonna switch things up a little bit here. We're doing our relationships, and we're talking about some subjects that came about that sparked my mind, and I wanted to bring our panel here, along with our guest, Dr. Zoe Stallings. Y'all know her from our COVID talks, as well as our bonnet conversation a few weeks ago, and my dear friend of over a couple of decades here, my man, Mikey here. How's it going, Mikey?
What's going on, man? How's everything? Glad to be here.
Thank you. And we have, like I said, JD and Johnny Dangerous here. So we're going to kick this off here, guys. And we're talking about dating in last names. This came about because of the fact that me and Nicole, my wife, actually watched a dating show called it's on the WeTV called Love and Marriage, and it's also another show that goes on about dating in the 30s and 40s and 50s. But what happened though is that she invited me to this Facebook post group page that talks about this show, Ready to Love. So I'm in this Facebook group page, and I see a lot of women commenting on this show, but it's not coming from a male perspective. I'm seeing so many posts, and I'm saying, man, I wish the fellas could see these things here. I wish Zoe could see this here, because I can't comprehend what's going on here. And one of the posts was talking about, should a woman take on the last name of a man when you get married? And so I was like, okay, this is interesting. So let me take a look at this here. And it looked like that most of women do not want to take on the last name for men in marriage. That literally one woman posted saying that my ex-husband didn't care. So I wanted to get the guys' input here. I want to introduce it here, but I will go round robin here. And so since we have our guests here, I want to start off with our female panelists here, Dr. Zoe Stallings here. I'm curious to find out, how do you feel about the last name in getting married and then with your mate and the respect that comes with a man?
So I can see where there's a divide in the genders about this. And there's also a cultural component, right? Because in some cultures, your last name also distinguishes where you live. So then your last name would also tell people where you are from or what your profession is if you're in a caste system. For me, I did not initially take my husband's last name. And the part of that is that we were both in the same career. So we were both physicians. And I was the first one to become a physician in my family. So it was very important that there be a doctor that had my father's last name. So even then, the distinction was respect to my father. And then, once you get married, the respect should be shown to your husband. But for a short amount of time, I wanted to have that in my family, just that legacy, and just to be able to say, because at that point, it was difficult for us to not see each other as peers because we're both physicians, and that deference. So in a lot of ways, I don't know. I think he would have preferred if I initially took his last name out the gate, but I did not. I wanted my diploma to say it under my name, and I wanted to have that for myself. But then once I had kids, I took his last name. I needed the uniformity. I needed to show that respect. And I also wanted my children to learn from me to have that respect. So I took his last name once we had children. So that's kind of my view. It's like, I think when you have kids, sometimes people choose not to have that last name, but it is difficult sometimes legally. You have to do more forms. The school wants to know, you're picking this child up, different last names, you travel with them. So for me, I just made that distinction as we are now a unit. We have children in the mix. We're going with one name. The name is somewhat of our distinction that we are all together.
All right. So you initially said that you didn't take the last name.
I didn't.
Now, deep down, we've had conversations in the past regarding previous relationships. Mm-hmm. Did you give him the "I'm a queen" speech? And that I'm gonna hold on to this because I'm independent and I'm Dr. Zoe. Did it come about like that?
It did not come about like that. I explained to him my feeling that to his family, it was just another doctor in the family because he was already a doctor. His father was a doctor. for my family, I'm the first, and I felt like I was a trailblazer, and I needed to just take that minute to just let that marinate and to own that and feel like, wow, I'm really empowered to do this thing. I never ever, he always got the big piece of chicken, right? It matters who gets the big piece of chicken. So I never, like, you know, I never took that role to say, I'm independent, I don't need a man. But I just knew that for me, I worked really hard for this thing and I wanted to have that distinction. And I can see that sometimes with singers, you know, you're a singer, you have an album deal, you've already branded yourself, now you get married, do you do that? And some women choose to hyphenate because they still want to hold on to who they were. You feel sometimes like you've lost yourself in a shuffle. So I can see some women saying it's not that big of a deal. It's just a name. But to men, they're taking on a huge responsibility. Men are taking on this financial role and this, I'm the head of the household. And sometimes without that name, they do feel like they have to always on their end explain, oh, okay, that's your wife. You know, so some men do need to have that distinction. But for me, I said it up front. I was like, look, I just want to be a doctor under my own name in my own right. And I didn't really go about it as a way to say, hey, you don't matter. I went about it as this is a professional thing in the household. You are my husband. I see you as such. But professionally speaking, when people call my name, I want them to say the name I was born with.
I didn't expect that. Dr. Zoe, got a question for you in regards to that.
Yeah.
And I totally get it. Especially you being the first. It's great being the first, especially coming out of family with anything that's positive, particularly being a servant to the world, to the community, being a doctor. That's huge. And the plight to get there, I'm sure, is only imaginable unless you actually do it. And so respects to you for that. I get that. Now, with that being said, do you feel like that did more good in your relationship or caused more of a challenge in the long run?
I think it caused a challenge. I think it became a situation where we, I think the idea of yielding and also being somewhat submissive, those things, because now it was more like we're peers, we're colleagues, and that relationship that normally, you kind of work into the team. It actually created, I think, a setting where I kind of felt like I was holding my own and he was holding his own. Like we were two separate silos. And I think that's the downside to it if you're not careful, right? So that's where the communication needs to come in as to what is the plan for when you feel that way, how will you address it? Or if he says no, a woman has to be real. If your husband says, I want you to take my name, I'm taking this step, we're becoming man and wife, I want you to take my name. I think it needs to be a conversation as to how big of a deal is it? Because someone will be like, oh, it's just a name, I'm keeping my name. Some women literally won't do it because they have to go stand in line and change their documents.
Right.
Some women think, you know what? What's the big deal? I'm with you. It doesn't matter what my name says. I come home to you every night. But the conversation needs to happen. What does it mean for the man? So if it's about respect, men value respect more than they value love. Respect is a bigger deal to men than love. I've learned this. You men can kind of say if it's true or not, but I read this in a book.
No, it's true. It's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, if it's seen as a sign of disrespect to your man, you really have to think about whether or not it's worth it, because when you get married, your name, your maiden name is the name your father gave you. When you get married, that name needs to make a distinction. So for me, once I became a mother as well, I decided to say, okay, you know what? We are a unit raising these kids and I'm taking this name, and I changed all my documents and went from there.
Interesting. I love to hear what Mike got to say, man. Well, my thing with that is that it's funny how it goes where the answer is always my career, right? Mm-hmm. It's always like it defines me as a person, and that I want to keep it because this is who I am. I mean, you also hear a lot of women will state something like, for example, like, but I don't want to change it because of my business. What if my business blows up? And my thing with that is just that if in the beginning alone you're not willing to change your name, there's always something underlying in there that what else are you not willing to change? Because it's something so basic. It's the culturally accepted thing. Now, like, I have it, for my sister was, when she got married, her husband actually was the one who offered to say he doesn't need his last name. He's willing to change his last name, right? And that shocked me when he said that in front of me. I was like, excuse me, what? And his reason was because he did not have an attachment to his father. His father left him, and so he's like, you know what? There's nothing meant. There's no meaning to it, so I'm willing to give it up. You know, but then a week before the wedding happened, he died. The father died. And then right there alone, my sister says, we're taking your last name. Because now there's no more legacy left on your father. You know, so my sister was the one that made the decision to say, we're taking your last name. He offered it first to take hers, which is our last name. Now, I get that point for him because there was nothing there. But for a woman to then say, I don't want to take your last name because what's important to me is my career. The thing though is, I mean, I get it where that comes from, but the thing with that is you're just saying is that my career is important than you. And if you choose your career over your man just from the beginning alone, and you know, I mean, I get it. You know, my sister is an ER physician. She's a vice president of one of the largest, you know, ER companies, ER hospitals, and everything. But the thing with that is that when you choose that over the man, that's going to hold against the woman all the time. And I don't know. And as men, we should actually ask women that nowadays in the beginning. You know, unfortunately, sometimes guys do not set the boundaries in place anymore to say, you know, what are the basic requirements that we have of a woman, and then so sometimes things run amok. You know.
I'd like to speak.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I'd like to speak on a more you know, inclusive matter, because, you know, I think as we do this conversation that inherently it ends up coming across as we're talking about male-female relationships, but I believe this can apply to same-gender couples as well. So I just want to get that. JD. Yeah, I just want to make sure that you know, everybody understands that as well. But this was a question that was super deep to me. I was, you know, and it's something that I hadn't really thought about, and I almost took it for granted. Like, man, you know what? Like, hey, this is my last name. She should have my last name because that's how it should be, and that's how it's always been. But at a certain point in time, I guess you do have to change with the times, and you might have to adjust that sort of line of thinking. But as a traditionalist, I would not be upset if my girlfriend Katie decided that she did not want my last name. I would feel somewhat disappointed though, because I would enjoy the fact that she is a Dorsey, that she is folding into me, into my family. And coming from that aspect, that's something that I feel that I would appreciate her doing. I feel like there's 20,000 other questions that can go along with that, and I got a bunch of questions myself, but I can't wait to hear what everybody else has to say, just since we're sort of just getting started right now.
Yeah, I'll go. Can everybody hear me okay? I know I had some glitchy issues earlier. Okay, excellent. So with my wife, I was what I was pushing, and not pushing, but suggesting is having her hyphenate her name. And I'm gonna take a different perspective here. I've always looked at my government name is Jeff Smith. I've always looked at my last name. You know, I have a very plain, very plain name. And I've always, in the back of my mind, connected that last name to slave masters. So I've never had 100% pride in saying I'm a Smith through and through, because when I hear the word Smith, I think about history and reverberations and stuff like that of my ancestors. So I've never, to be honest with you, never had that strong connection to my last name through and through. I have a strong connection to my family, obviously, but the name itself always kind of rang a different bell in my mind. So for that reason, I didn't have as much of a stronghold or as much of a demand in thinking, okay, she needs to take on this name because it represents this, and this. So I was pushing for the hyphenation of it. Full disclosure, my wife is Mexican, and I mean, her maiden last name technically is from the Spanish slave master too. You know what I mean? But for some reason, I thought that her Spanish last name was a little bit closer to the source of who she is, being half indigenous, half Spaniard, whatever the case may be, than just Smith. And that was the reason why I was pushing for the hyphenation of it, because I didn't hold the name as near and dear to my heart as a lot of other men may do.
That's what's up, man. It's good to hear that different perspective, Jeff. Appreciate that, man. And it makes a lot of sense. First of all, I want to thank all the people in the chat. Chat's just going crazy right now.
Yeah, it is.
Thank all the folks that Mikey and Dr. Zoe brought in. I see Mogman and a couple of other people on here making some great comments and suggestions. Somebody actually brought up the fact that if you get married to someone and then get divorced, what happens after that? Is the woman supposed to keep the man's name and whatnot? Those are all very valid and good questions. My question or my thing is this. Women, from my understanding and my experience, one of their biggest goals in life is to find a good man and get married. Find a good man and get married. Women talk about marriage from childhood all the way up until it happens. And even after it happens, they still talking about it. They're talking about it with their girlfriends. They're talking about it with their mamas. They're talking about it everywhere. Marriage is like a huge deal for women. For a lot of guys, it's not such a huge deal. But once a man does find a wife, which is supposed to be a good thing, right? Most men have expectations from that woman. And one of the biggest things, and Dr. Zoe talked about this earlier, is the respect of carrying that man's last name. It's huge for a man to get married. It's huge, especially when he's confident in himself, he's happy with himself, and he knows he can do great as a single man. So when he does choose and find a wife, and when she picks that man, because y'all choose each other and y'all come together, that man has an expectation of that woman carrying his last name out of respect and everything else that falls up under it. And so I would think most women, being that getting married is one of their biggest goals in life, would have no problem taking that man's last name. But as we see in this conversation, there's a lot of different reasons why women don't, women won't. Women want to continue to have their name. They want to hyphenate. They want to add, and it all makes sense. I just figured since women, that's their biggest goal, that they would be proud. Most women would be proud to have the honor of having that man's last name. What do you guys think about that?
I'd love to hear from our guests again.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I was like, let me wait.
Playing double dutch.
So the thing is, yes, how we're raised, women start playing doll and they want to be married, and I can speak on that. When when we talked a little earlier about the idea of a career, did we put the career first? I always thought that marriage was inevitable. I knew I was going to get married. In my brain, that was kind of how I was groomed and raised. My mom raised me to be somebody's wife one day. So I completely understand that. I don't think women understand that it's such a big deal about respect for men, the last name. I think if you just poll, that's why, David, I'm probably sure that in the room it was so hot, because women would probably think of it as, I'm already living with you. I'm already going to carry your child. I'm carrying a whole child. I gave up living my whole life, and I'm risking my health and all these other things that we really think are the main sacrifices. But I can also see on the other hand, because as men are, like you said, when they're confident and they kind of realize that they have a lot of options out there, it's really a big decision to get yourself off the market and settle down. So if we think of it even as corporate branding, right? You're looking at, this is my home base. This is what I'm about. This is my mission. I'm taking care of my family. I could see why the name would be a big issue for men. I don't think women get that it's that big of an issue. And I think it's really important that if it's a big issue, so for instance, Jeff said he's not that attached to his name. My last name, my maiden last name is actually Smith as well. It's as generic as it comes. It's really hard to find you in any book. But
Exactly.
But at the same time, when I saw, and once again, it goes back again to who are you paying the respect to? As a single woman, you're your father's child, you have his name, depending on your social structure and who is on your birth certificate. All those dynamics we won't get into. Let's keep it simple by saying you have your father's name. When you get married now, the responsibility should shift over to your husband. That's not really what's happening now. We're no longer living on farms. Women are working. So some women just don't see it as a measure of, they see themselves as equals and I like my name. So I think if women understood what it meant to men, and if most men would speak up front and say, hey, things before you even shack up, living together, before y'all start co-signing on loans, just make it clear. Like, look, I'm feeling you, we're vibing. If we take any kind of step, I expect that you're going to take my name. I think having that conversation really early on, because some women have either thought it through and said, well, and what some women are hedging their bets. And that's why I think, Mike, you made a good point. You're saying, are you really committed if you can't take the name, right? How can you say you're all in if you can't take this step? And to a lot of men, it's just like, what is just a small thing? We didn't think that's the thing that you're going to, the hill you're going to die on. We thought that there are other things. We're having sex with you on a regular basis and only you. We're having kids with you. We're living in the house, cleaning up after you in most cases. We're just not thinking it's that big of a deal, because I personally didn't understand. But once I took the name and I saw the reaction, I realized, I was like, oh, I guess this was a big deal to this man. I think he was more worried about what people thought about him in the streets. I didn't have his name. And I think that the brother felt insecure.
That's a really good point. I want to get to Mikey in a second, but I want to say a few quick things here. So communication is key, because as we know, every relationship is different. The foundation of every relationship is different. So there may be a relationship where the man's demanding that the woman takes his name, and if that don't happen, then the marriage ain't happening. Maybe another one where the man's going to take the woman's name, or whatever the case may be. It can run the whole gamut. I think that what we're really getting down to is, what type of communication do you have in your relationship, and are you clearly articulating, your thoughts and your wants? Because I think people come into relationships with set standards, how they think things are going to go, and there's lots of posturing that goes on, and everybody's jockeying for position. And that becomes like a grudge match, and that becomes a conflict, and you're battling against each other. So you need to work together to figure out what's the best case scenario that you all can agree on, so a relationship can move forward in a healthy way. You know what I mean? And that obviously is different for every relationship. So I just want to say that, because it sounds like this name stuff is important, but it sounds like there's, to Mikey's point too, there's some other underlying things potentially behind this as well too. Because somebody can say, well, if you don't take my name, what else you ain't gonna take? Or it can be, something else, but you need to know where the other person stands and what their expectations are, and then proceed from there, as opposed to assuming that this is how it's going to be.
Yeah. Let me hop back in, because Zoe made a comment regarding that Facebook post. Like, one thing that was brought out is that even the women in the post that didn't think it's a big deal, some of them even said that their man thought it was a big deal. So that's what triggered me, right? I'm like, because reason why it triggered me, I'll give it from a personal standpoint, and then just seeing it from a traditional standpoint. Like, I look at a name as everything to you. Only thing you have in this life is your name in the beginning and the end. Like, when everything is done, and when they go to your tombstone, if you have your urn, that's all they have. And then from there, what people can say about that name, said name. And for me, I am my father's son. He named me after someone, and there's been so many other stories, but we had a one-on-one discussion. And he said that my favorite player that I ever watched was Ernie Davis, but he died, and no one get to saw how great he was. But he had to change the name because my mom and people weren't, so it's David Anthony, Ernie Davis, to symbolize that I saw something in greatness with him, and I want my son to have greatness. So if my father named me after somebody who he thought was greatness, and his last name is this here, no matter what the past, I know we've heard about, I respect that you say about the American slave masters and not having that much thought to it. I'm taking it deep first. Like, my pops felt this much about his last name. So if I'm starting a family, I'm starting this unit, you're going to be my wife. We're going to have kids. We're moving as one. That one name moves together. You don't want my name, stay single, because you know what? I'm going to be there for you. I'm the one holding the rock down here. I'm the one going to pay the mortgage. I'm the one going to pay the comment bill. I'm the one that's going to be there when you're sick. So if you need that support system, off the rip, we move as one.
So are you only speaking towards like guys who are like the head of the household type, like I'm laying my hand down, it's my way or the highway type dude? Like,
that's what it is.
But here's the thing, though. I don't want to sound like it's my way to highway. But at the end of the day, though, you got the best of me. You know what I'm saying? We do everything we need to do.
Wait, we got to hear Mike. We got to hear Mike.
The best of you, Dave.
Man,
No. We got him right.
we gonna do this now. We're gonna do this now.
I think
Yeah,
it
man,
just
man.
goes to the. Let's just cut it just to the basics, right? And I'm just gonna go straight basics here. What's the part of a man asking a woman to change her last name to his name? Like, it's a feminine thing to do. What do men like in women? Men like women who are feminine. What are feminine women? Sweetness, supportiveness, sensitivity. Supportive. Well, let me support you. The thing though is, like Dr. Zoe was talking about, some women nowadays, they just don't understand. But it's more of like they don't understand how to become feminine. You have women nowadays talking about, well, I can be feminine when I want to. No. You're feminine. You should be feminine if you are. If you have to choose when you want to be feminine, then you're not feminine anymore. That means you're arguing already. You're argumentative already towards the man or to anybody else because you're not feminine. Now, I can tell you one thing. If, let's say, my name was LeBron James and I marry the girl and she's a doctor, I bet you she'll change her last name.
Come on now.
It all depends on the man, on who she's with. And no, much respect, Dr. Zoe. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about most of the average women out there. You accomplish something that is something that you're trying to do, but most of the average women, they want to start keeping talking about, well, it all depends. I'll be feminine for this. It's about being feminine. I think women forgot the part about being feminine nowadays. How many women can we honestly say that we know are very feminine, who are true feminine women? Can you name a woman who's feminine? You can't no more. There's a mixture of something else in there.
Dr. Zoe said, me. I'm
Okay.
I can definitely name some. But so are we? I want to make sure we don't get, because there's a slippery slope here too. We don't get convoluted with feminine versus strong, because a woman can be strong and feminine. Some people may think that's not true. You know what I mean? So like,
No.
In your opinion, Mikey, can a woman be feminine, a woman to the nth degree, but also still be strong? I'm not talking about muscles, obviously, but can still be
It's
strong.
easy to tell the difference, though.
You know what I'm saying?
You can see
that,
it.
and I definitely agree with what you're saying about that. There's a big difference between a strong woman, a smart woman, and stuff like that. But unfortunately, it's just that here's the one thing that you also will see a lot is that as men, we will call each other out no matter what. There's that thing that we will have, but for women, they don't call each other out as much anymore. So, and the more you can say aggressive women out there, unfortunately, is over speaking at times, and it's making it look bad. So, but I get it. Strong women, there are strong women out there, and they can be feminine as well. But you can't. It's hard to find them nowadays, And a lot of women, especially here, you'll start hearing in the whole, we'll just say YouTube thing, Facebook thing, and all that stuff. They start complaining that they can't find a man. Well, obviously, you can definitely start seeing that. But what they don't understand is that their men are looking elsewhere now. It's not just about, it's not just about finding a man, for example. It's just like I said earlier on, it's just the basic stuff of like a name. Take my name. Why don't you want it?
That's a good question. Why don't you want it? Right. So I think that's important, but that goes right back to the communication. If it is an issue of respect, once again, men value respect more than love. If it's an issue of respect, I think if women understood that it was an issue of respect, I think women just don't get that it's that big of a deal. But once again, when you talk about femininity, you're all saying to this role. We talked about the alpha male last show, and so the idea of the alpha male, but a lot of men aren't taking on that role. Some women are protecting themselves and being the head of the household. They don't necessarily have that alpha male. I would love it if we lived in a society where we had women who were in these marriages and they felt like they were defended and cared for. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of women that have last names of men that don't come home at night. Okay, so it's just like, okay, what can we truly say is if it's a deal breaker? I think every couple, once you get to a certain point and you're now pursuing each other, you're exclusive, I think you should list out your deal breakers. Mm-hmm. If that is one of your deal breakers and you make that clear, I want you to take my last name. And if she says, I want you to stop going out in these streets, you compromise. But what people tend to do is the man will want the woman to take the name, be submissive, and they haven't changed their behavior. What things have you changed? What have you brought to the table that you're compromising on? So it
I
needs
get
to
it.
be fair.
Then my answer to that is, to the woman, is you chose the wrong man. Because why do you think that you want? Why could you expect a man to change himself all of a sudden when you get him, when you lock him down? Women, unfortunately, sometimes they want to be able to find somebody who has potential rather than who they are. So, okay, the woman's gonna say, "I'll take your name if you change." No, you chose the man already. Don't complain about you want him to change. Why? As men, when we choose a woman, we made a decision on, by her looks, by things that we have. But women want to say perceived, what they're worth. Like, oh, well, I can change him. I make $100,000. I can make this guy make $100,000 from 30,000. Perceived value is one of the biggest mistakes. You take my last name, you take who I am. You can't complain. Once you say I do, everything that I've done wrong, you have to accept it. Just as the man should not complain either that the fact the woman that he's with, he can't expect to change her as well. Why do people expect other people to change? It's impossible to do that.
I've seen that for years. People don't really change. It's really difficult to. It usually takes like near-death experiences, trauma. People don't change, and it's even out of the fear of death, people still don't change. So it takes a lot of learning. But people in their 20s don't understand that. What you're saying, Mikey, people don't get that when they're 24 getting married.
No, they don't. And then what's this whole thing with women talking about love language? You need to know my love language. You need to know what sparks me.
Hold on.
Yeah,
I believe in that book.
No,
I believe in that book.
all of them are my love language.
Okay,
Realize
hold on.
being able to communicate, you need to know how to get to the root of your partner.
Exactly.
You gotta know how to get to the root.
Let's talk about communication. What's communication?
Obvious talking is one form of it.
Okay.
Actually having a conversation, and not surface conversations, but conversations.
According to studies, communication is based under nonverbal language. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Then also as well as your cadences, the way you talk, and then at the same time is words. Words is only 7% of communication. It's how you are able to actually enunciate, and actually at the same time is reading nonverbal body language. 7% is only verbal. Yet we expect to communicate 100% through words. That's why one of the biggest problems is having arguments when you're text messaging. So the problem there is most people don't understand the basics of communication the way it is, and with that problem, exactly, but the thing though is women want men to know what they are thinking. But the problem with that whole thing is that men are the easiest ones to figure out. But, going in regard to the love languages, I believe in the love languages also. All right, fine, I'll take it. I'll take all the different love languages that are in there. Words of affirmation. We'll talk about that. Quality time, physical touch, act of service, receiving gifts. The thing though with that is all that should be part of love. But people choose to say, I am a receiving gifts person. But no, most of the time is they also want affirmation and quality time. So if a woman tells me, active service is important to her, I'm going to go to her and say, okay, I'm going to go 100% active service because she said that's how I can actually get her.
Yeah, but that's not how it works, though. You should, in my opinion, you should do all of them. You should do all of them, but the extra percentage is what the preference is. But you should always do all of them.
But let me ask you a question: wouldn't they complain about if you didn't do the other one 100% as well?
You have a conversation.
Here's the thing.
A conversation about it, Mikey.
I've taken the love language quiz over the span of 10 years, and I think it depends on where you are in life.
Oh, it can
when you have
there it is.
And
That's the answer I was waiting for right there.
Please come and pick me up. It's cold out here in these streets. Please pick me up. I need you to help me wash these clothes. When you have a job and you feel more fulfilled, now spend time with me because time is my most limited resource. When you're broke, you might like some gifts because quite frankly, I need some shoes. It depends on where you are in life, because if you're the same person and you take that quiz across the span of every 5 years, your love language will shift constantly because of what you need given the time and where you are. in your life.
Mhm.
But
That goes
mine
back to
is,
that.
you know,
I forgot who made the point about people. We do change. Somebody said we don't change. I know sometimes you can say, I guess at your core, you're who you are. But relationships evolve and people change and people grow together. They grow apart. They grow upside down. They go sideways.
Mhm.
So you have to be able to recognize that too. Things do evolve and they change. So what was once sweet 7 years ago may not work today.
That's true, but like what Dr. Zoe just did shows proof exactly that's how a woman should act about it to be able to make that right argument regarding the love language. But if you put that in front of another woman who is not sure of herself or is not in the the maturity stage of where she is, then what ends up happening with those women, they just go crazy and start swearing and get really mad at you. That's like one of my biggest SHIT tests on women is when I literally do the love language routine on them. And then they snap, and then I just tell them, you know what, this is not going to work out.
You're cutting people. You gotta go. You get no rose. Get out.
Let's go halvesies. You take care of your salmon, I'll take care of my steak.
Hey, Mike, you said you ain't even gonna pay for the rest of the meal. Huh?
I'm just saying,
man.
You drew the line literally.
Hey, when you know your self-worth, what you want, what you don't like, what you do like, if you don't see it, you cancel that right there at that table, huh?
I have left girls in a dinner table at least 5 times in my life.
Man,
Oh, is this a bachelor? Like he just walked out, production crew and everything.
I literally have left 5 girls in my life, and 4 of them are from Arizona.
Shout out to Arizona. Jeez.
Right down there, man.
Hold on, I've been to Arizona a couple of times. Have I seen a few of these women?
No.
Okay, that's what I'm making.
You've seen my ex-wife though, Dave. So
I wasn't talking about her. I was talking about her, man.
Okay.
Hey, Dave, you seen them after Mikey ditched them? They turned into cactus on the side of the road.
There are a couple of scorpions, unfortunately.
Yikes! A man scorned.
I'm like, what?
I think circling back to the conversation at hand with the last names, I have this sort of question to pose. Why does it matter? Why does it, at the end of the day, why does it really matter? And I'm speaking on this in the sense that it does to some degree matter to me. And like I said before, I feel a sense of comfort in having a wife who's going to take my last name. But at the end of the day, should it even really matter?
Some of it is that's how it always been, and that's how it always should.
And that right. And
some of it is that.
But I think because of that, at least for me, I've fallen victim to that. I've fallen victim to that sort of thinking that that's how it is, that's how it should be. And I think it takes some time to try to break myself of that. But then at the end of the day, I don't want to break myself of that. I feel like I want a wife who is going to embrace my last name. So I can ask, why does it matter? But then my own personal opinion is it does matter.
No, that's great. You can hold those dual thoughts, JD. There's nothing wrong with that.
Hey, it matters to me because I don't want my wife to look like a baby mama. When I was mentioned earlier about when we said moving to the unit, move as one, and when you have kids and all the legal stuff like that, I'm just gonna be real. My last name is different from your last name, and the kid has a hybrid of whatever. It looks like baby mama's. Yeah, and whatever you're gonna say, like if I'm judging, yes, there's sometimes we should judge. Sometimes if people make bad mistakes, you choose the wrong woman, you choose the wrong man, and you know what? It is what it is. You're a baby mama, and I don't want my situation to look like a baby mama. Say what you want to say about me. I want to look as one across the board. We have the same name. We work together. We move together as a unit, and that's how we move.
Okay, so would you be willing to take her last name?
Hell no. Saying that right now, that ain't happening.
I mean, but you're gonna be a unit though, right? You a unit. That's one. Nope. That's one unit. This is her last name though.
Don't matter. That's not how the game goes. When you say how it goes, that's not how the game goes here. And you know what though? It may sound harsh or rude, but you know what though? I didn't have to ask Nicole about that. No, she told me off the rip. We didn't have the conversation. I'm taking your last name. I'm not even hyphenating it. she was like, yo, she even said we moving as one. Hey.
So you got exactly what you wanted.
Yeah, you found the right one because
And-
you had the conversation.
I had the conversation. I even had the question about it. There's other women who I dated before her, and they, I didn't have a mind about hyphenating, but I made evidence that we're gonna have the last name. And some women actually told me, it's like, no, one told me, I don't want to get married. This is a whole nother conversation. We gotta have another show. It's because I got all this student loan debt because I've been going to college so much and got all these damn degrees, didn't get married and everything like that. Now it's like, if I marry him, we gonna carry this debt together. So why don't we just live together? So I was like, wow. So it's like, that's not gonna happen because we definitely gonna be, I'm not doing no common law ish. So
Man, a lot of great interesting perspectives here, man. I'm loving it.
Interesting.
Mike, you had
Yeah.
a lot of great facts, man. I pretty much agree with everything that you say. Dr. Zoe, same thing, man. It's just great to get all this collective knowledge. Jeff, going back to what you mentioned before, as far as your last name Smith goes, and how it's a common name, and a lot of people have that name. And Dr. Zoe, you said that was your previous last name as well. I could share those sentiments. My last name is Stevens, spelled a little bit differently. It's not so much as the actual name, last name, Stevens. I don't know who originally gave that name to my family line. My people probably didn't even come up with that name. But
of course they didn't.
Right. Thinking about it, I take a sense of pride in the name, not because it was given to me. My last name could be Longhorn.
Mhm.
It's the experiences in my life and the men that have come before me and the women, because I actually got it from my grandmother being married to my grandfather, and I look up to her on a whole nother level. You know what I'm saying? She's beyond the stars, as far as her being an example and the woman that she was and the things that she did and raising all those kids by herself. But she bore men that, to me, I was able to look up to those men. They created a name for themselves. They're all married men. They're all successful. They all came from the mud. You know what I'm saying? And they all established and built themselves. They all have homes, successful careers, taking care of the family and everything. And, if anybody has done anything in their life, as far as sports or involved with activities, if you've done anything to where you're able to contribute and give back, you develop a sense of pride. I've developed a sense of pride for my last name, not because it was given to me, but because of the men and women before me that have held that name and what they've been able to accomplish. It's created and defined who I am. And so that's why I take a sense of pride in that. And so when it comes to respect, like Dr. Zoe had mentioned earlier, it's big for a man. Not everybody has my same experience and has that same type of pride behind their name. But most men have a sense of pride behind their name, and they look at it as being a gift, of a badge of honor to give it to their spouse when they decide to get married. Not everybody feels that way, but I think most men could probably relate to that. And if you're in the chat right now and you don't agree with that, please let us know. We love to hear that. And so,
John,
That's a great point, John. That's a great point.
That's what you beat me to it. Two things that a woman can honor a man is his last name and his seed. That is the two highest at the end of the day, people. No matter how you like, the two highest honors that a woman can give to her man are those items right there.
Okay, I got a question. Why are we? It's like this whole conversation is inherently male based.
Yeah.
It's male slanted.
Yeah.
So if we, as a man, and like I said, I'm just bringing up points.
Mhm.
If I had to counter argue myself, what about the woman? Shouldn't she feel pride in her last name too? Shouldn't she feel pride that, through her family lineage?
It's called maiden name.
Shouldn't she be excited and wanting, her mate to to take on her last name? And I heard somebody talking. I didn't catch what they said though.
Huh? What'd you say, Mike?
It's called maiden name.
I like to hear Mike's response.
It's called what?
It's called maiden name. They still have their name. It's in the middle. Well, you want to be last? Do you want to be? Technically, you should be like, well, at least you're before my name. Technically, right? You still have your name. It's still who you are. What's next? You want your kid named after you, not me?
What about scenario?
Because your last name because your last name has a is incorporated, because your last name has value. It's like, I don't understand. I'm not taking your name away. You're still who you are. Except and then you have all these arguments of like, then sometimes you have this, then the whole Bible thing and stuff like that. What I mean, we can go even further, even more if we want to, but yeah, I get it. The whole last name thing is around 1200, is from the 1200 and Anglo-Saxon days of traditions to be able to go ahead and give that to you. Fine, I get it. But the thing though is, it's like, when does it end? This is one of the basic things. Just like what guys were talking about, it is something of value. Sometimes it's the one and only few value that men have that they can be proud of is their name. That's why, what am I gonna do? Plant an apple seed and call it orange?
Repeat that point you just said, Mike. You said this is one of the few.
This is one of the few main valuable things a man can say that he has. Like for me, I don't know. I never met my great grandfather who has the name, but I know one thing: my father had that name, and one thing I also know, it's a name I've always known who I am as a person. And if you're gonna start me off as of something, you say man is something of value, right? Then you just devalued me, because this is something that has always been known. What's gonna happen when friends of mine, my colleagues as well, find out that my wife has a different name? How is that gonna make a man
I hear
look?
a common theme of and one thing I want to push back on, of being worried about what somebody else is gonna think.
That's a huge
Forget
point.
that, man. Forget that. I don't care about that. I don't care about this looks like a baby mama. Like, I don't care about that. I don't care about what the other folks or whoever's gonna say what.
I get it, but
because they can always find something to say. If it ain't the last name, is something else.
I agree.
You know what I'm
but here's
saying?
the thing, if we're talking about status and you're dealing with business and stuff like that, it does matter. And that's the biggest problem.
Does it?
Yes, it does. If you're dealing with the C-suites, if you're up there with talking with the people who's supposed to run business, that is going to be an objection by bigger men on you. And one of the biggest things is, if you're a man and stuff like that, if you want to deal with some of the higher guys and stuff like that, you cannot have some of the smallest objection that is put upon you by other people. Because yes, they may not say it to your face, but it's going to be said. And if it is said, it's over for you.
So you better get in line. If you want to get what you want to get, you better get in line and follow the protocol.
You have to follow the protocols. There's no such thing as you can't. There are policies and procedures in place that has to have in order to be able to happen things. And I get it. Some people are willing to go the other way, but it is sure you can definitely go the other way and try it a different way to be able to accomplish something.
I guess it's based upon decisions. It's based upon your own.
Yeah, it is.
You don't have to
You don't have to, but at the very same time as you don't have to, but the other guys don't even have to play with you either. See, when you make a decision, you say, well, I don't want people to, I want people to go to the beat of my drum. That's perfectly fine. But can you beat the drum, louder than the other guys to make them come to you?
I would just say with that, Mikey, I would just say, just be careful and don't lose yourself in that process. Because
exactly.
Conforming for that, you can lose yourself in the process. You
get it.
But you can lose yourself. You can lose who you are.
No, I get it. But here's the thing. I think a lot of people forget the fact that if you know who you are as a person, and you also understand the game, then you can manipulate it for yourself.
So
I can respect that. It's just at what cost, but I can respect.
I'm curious I'm listening because I'm fascinated at how much stress y'all men put yourselves through. Like, I'm literally like, dang, there's so much to this. I really think that's why men die faster than women. Like, y'all die younger because you have so much stress. You're worried about what this person's thinking. You're worried about she doesn't have my name. David's over here like, look, we gonna all wear the same jersey. The same you gonna eat the cake, anime, eat the cake. It's like it's a lot of stress. But at the end of the day, respect doesn't always have to be like, a woman doesn't have to feel like chattel. Like, I don't want to feel like I am a possession, but at the same time, I want to defer and I want to be engaged with my man, and I want him to take care of me, and I want to be respectful to him. And what that looks like might be different for both of us, because I don't want a person who is now saying, okay, I want you to have this name for other people. Like, so far the conversation was going great when it was like, I'm going to take care of you. I'm taking this step. I had a lot of choices, but I chose you, willingly chose you. And because I chose you, and this means something to me, and it's a respect thing for me. But now it's all about what the C-suites are saying, your career. Why is it not okay for a woman to look at her career too? So I've seen people who are both doing really well to the point where they are best friends. They just never did the legal thing of changing the forms, happily married, because once again, what it boils down to is their communication is so spot on. They understand what's valuable to them. They have boundaries. Boundaries are important, and they have deal breakers. They know that when I go out, this is my man. I will not disrespect him. It's just a matter of what have you done in your communication and in your growth as a couple to make your status clear. I think the name is a small fraction of that. It really is. Because when I was I'm telling you, the first moment I put on my engagement ring, two times I've been hollered at in life where I'm confused. Big old pregnant belly with the outie belly button. I don't know what it is. Men love pregnant women. Men love pregnant women. And once a man sees, oh, you're engaged, because once again, a man will try to approach you because that's now a challenge for him. So I get that. Some men might feel like, I want you to take this name. I want you to take this ring. I want you. It's a lot. So at a certain point, you have to value each other and trust each other. But it's really a lot.
Hey, real quick. This is a great conversation, by the way.
Oh yeah, it's on fire tonight. This chat is woo.
It is. A lot of people bashing Mikey, and they say respected everything he said up until he made that statement. Look, here's the thing: it's different strokes for different folks.
Yeah,
you can't relate to Mikey if you ain't a businessman and you ain't working the angles that he's trying to work. Then you wouldn't understand where he's coming from. You know what I'm saying? His last name is important. He's making moves of importance where his name is important. So if you don't understand that, you can't really bash his perspective. Everybody has their different perspective.
Right. That's
you
true.
know what I'm saying? And so that's why we're having this conversation here. Everybody has made valid points, but what we're trying to do is open everybody's mind to understand the different perspectives, what's important to different people in their relationships. And it boils back down to what Jeff had said earlier and Dr. Zoe, communication is key, and it's different in every relationship. In Mikey's relationship, that last name is important because of the reasons that he stated. So don't diss it because you don't understand it. Listen to it, understand it, bring it in, soak it in so that you can learn something and add it to your perspectives.
And I wish women would know. I wish there was a way to have a class when they're in middle school, maybe cut out driver's ed. These kids aren't going to be driving, but
cut out driver's ed.
Class. I mean, I wish they would take the time to teach young people at that critical age how to communicate, because women literally hear something totally different. Women don't hear what you all are saying. We hear what we feel. And that's a fact. Women hear what we are feeling. So when you're texting things, you could be texting something that's just a simple statement of the car is dirty. The woman is in a certain mood. It's an indictment. Who car are you talking about dirty? It's
you blaming me?
We hear with our feelings, and sometimes I can say I've learned it over years. You know, I'm going to be 40 in September. It took me that much time to learn that emotions have a half-life. Shut down the emotions and listen to what the man is saying, because men don't speak with all that high emotional irrationality. They're telling you how they feel. Listen. So if you're in a relationship with a man and he says it's a deal breaker for me, I really want you to take my last name, and you don't understand why, just say, okay, tell me why. And if you hear a valid reason and you say, okay, I mean, that makes sense. I'm going to hold you to other things you say, though. You know, you don't have to bring the groceries in. You're going to take the trash out. You're going to do these things.
Bills,
you're going to pay these mortgage bills.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to stay fit. You make the agreement as to what marriage will look like for you, and you agree to it. The problem we have is we are listening sometimes with emotions, and I can call myself out because I used to do that. And now we need to understand men don't process things the same way women do. And in a lot of ways, we women don't get the importance of the name because we think, it's just him being a caveman.
True. And a lot of people are skipping that aspect before they even get married, right, Dr. Zoe? A lot of people are not even taking time to really get to know each other, to have these talks and conversate, to understand each other. They get married, they don't understand each other until after they get married, and by that time it's too late because they don't agree with that understanding. And it becomes a misunderstanding, and now we can't be together.
Hey, let me chime in too. So Zoe, you actually said two things on two sides of your mouth. So I got to call you out on this one here.
Call me, I'm ready.
All right, because you just said like us men, we're getting stressed out here. You know, Mikey's saying about the sea level here, and I said, you know, and Jeff even too said about the baby mamas and what we think about other things here, right? Right then and there, as a man, and all these women is posting these Facebook posts that maybe bring us to the topic today. I'm not elevated here, but I'm telling you this is important to us, and you just minimized it. So we got to have these communications here. If I'm saying this is important, you know, you're stressing yourself out. No, we're not stressed. We laid the ground level here. We're saying, hey, this is important to us. And you said what you said, not agree with us, but earlier you said the opposite here. And that's what I was encountering on the Facebook post saying that, well, why does it matter? Why stress us out?
I never said, why does it matter? I never said, why does it stress you out? I'm saying, I feel sorry for the stress you carry about this. I didn't say it wasn't worth it.
No, it shouldn't. Sorry about stress. If there are certain basic parameters that a woman has for a man. So if this is the basic parameter, it's not stress. This is the level that we're laying the groundwork here. It's not saying.
No, I'm saying for a man to have to worry about this, the perception. There's so much. So now this independent person who used to walk around that you're now married to has to now understand that I, as a woman, I'm responsible for my image, and my image also reflects on my husband. And some women may not get that. But also the man is thinking about his image, his perception. He's trying to think about where I'm going in life and will this woman take me there? And I don't think we understand that's how much stress that puts on men. That's what I'm saying. You guys are under a lot of stress from the image of who you are, right? And so women may not understand that it's also a bigger picture of the image of who we are. Everybody's laughing at Russell Wilson all the time that he's soft, he's a mark. He
is.
However, I love me some Russell Wilson.
You can love him, but he is.
But what I'm saying is, once again, think about the stress. That man has so many things, and people think he's soft.
He's selling fantasies. He's selling women short. He's selling that women can get a man just like him. There's only one of him.
You sell what?
You on mute, JD. You on
mute. We don't have time to get Wilson.
I really don't agree with that one. You on your island. You on your own island with that one.
Mike agrees with me on this one. I know there's everybody else here that got some opinions on Russell Wilson. We don't.
I feel like I can live up to the best standard that's out there. Just because Russell Wilson is some random dude that people like, don't mean that I think that I'm less than him or that I can't be just as good of a man as he is.
No, he's a good businessman. He's a great football player, but he's selling the fantasy that every woman can have this type of dude here, and there's only one Russell.
They can. No, they can. There are dudes out there that are like that. There are dudes out there that are like that. I'm one of them. I might not have the loot that he got, but I'm one of them. I don't care what nobody say. I'm a catch, and I guarantee you my girlfriend would tell you the exact same thing.
That's right. That's right. He's a Russell Wilson of his own. He's a JD. You okay?
Exactly.
Messing with people.
Gotta be a one of one. Gotta be a one of one.
I ain't gonna sell myself short. Oh
That's
man,
right.
Russ out here, man. I wish I could be like him. I can't match up to that.
I never said that, JD.
I never got that bad.
No. I never said that.
I can't, man.
No.
Maybe one day.
No, that's stuff there, JD.
I could throw a football.
No, JD. Don't do that. That's some simp shit right there. I never said that.
Whoa.
I'm saying Russell Wilson was hot. He went ahead and wiped up the wife. Oh, let me whoa.
All right. We gotta get into another show.
Just don't curse.
Go for it. Go.
No.
And we can go. We can go over a little bit tonight. We'll go over a little bit.
Yeah, Russell.
If you guys are on my channel, we'll be swearing left and right just for fun.
Russell, you gotta get on there, bro.
No. Russell Wilson is selling the fantasy that all women can get a man like him, and there's only 2% of like men like him in the world.
If that.
Okay, no. what are his qualities that's only 2%, Dave? What are his 2% qualities?
I'm not talking about qualities. Y'all keep going to these qualities here. Did you hear what I said? He's a good.
Did Sierra take his last name though? Just out of curiosity.
I don't think Sierra has a last
name.
That is a good point.
Okay.
Let's go back. That's a good point.
We can, this whole Russell
Sierra Wilson. She did.
I understand where Dave's coming from, but it's gonna take like a whole hour if I'm gonna explain my side of things.
Let me just say, when it comes to dating, we should never add athletes or entertainers because it's on a whole other spectrum that the regular person are not there. So I'm saying that where he is at, there's only 2% of men in the world who has all the overall qualities, and women put a pedestal on Russell Wilson and think that we're all like him.
No.
I brought him. And so I know it's a lot deeper than that. I know I made it macro, but in these Facebook posts too, that we'll have another conversation on. They make it that way, and we can get deeper into that. Now, you guys may not see that, but these conversations I've been having, Lord have mercy.
Oh man, they've been. Ooh.
I've been quiet too. I'm not like interjecting my. I'm just like, hey, what do you think, man? It just comes down like this. Not like it's only a few men like him in the world. You cannot strive to get this man. You can have the qualities is one thing. The whole package, no, you can't have it all.
But every
They want a
woman
rich
has
football
a
player with
Cinderella
curly hair?
dreams.
Go ahead.
I
Mike.
mean, every woman has a Cinderella dreams. It's a Cinderella effect.
But I'm
right?
saying even a man that rich is still worried about his image. His image is largely trash. A lot of men are thinking he's soft and he's all these things. The point I brought up was even when you are a rich football player, medaled, and you've been to the White House, men have to worry about their image all the time. That was the point I was trying to make, is that it is really tough to be a man with that image idea. So I'm saying when you get into a relationship and it's long term, you want to be with this person, understand what they value and understand what respect looks like to them.
Sure.
A lot of women don't know what respect looks like their man.
Come on, Dr. Zoe.
Okay, so Sierra did take Russell Wilson's last name, just to let you guys know.
That's right.
She did take the last name. She is known as Sierra Wilson, so at least we can, that's in there. But I mean,
cool. I didn't even know she had a last name.
And not Sierra Future or Sierra Bow Wow. Okay. Hey, she did good.
And
we do have to wrap this up.
Yeah, for my last comment here, for the last name, ladies, Kim Kardashian is one of the most successful women in the world, and she added that West to her last name. So when it comes to business, she recognized the value of her man's last name and made it work for her. And now KKW is the brand, even though they're divorced. KKW staying. She recognized that value of that last name.
I wondered what that have been there. I wonder what that have been there if it was somebody different from Kanye, if it was a regular guy.
Doesn't matter. My last comment though, she married a man who recognized the value of that name and took her platform to the next level. That last name means a lot for someone who's already wealthy, rich.
Great conversation tonight, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode. Please be sure to follow us on social media as well as YouTube. Click and like and subscribe by searching for Jump Off Live, and we'll see you all next week.
Like and subscribe button.
And our guests.
Peace and love.
Where can they find you guys?
Oh yeah, real quick.
Oh, at Must Clinic.
Okay.
On Instagram and LinkedIn and everywhere else.
Awesome. Mikey, how can they get at you? I know they want to get at you, Mikey, so let them know.
Philippine Journey, homehealthsuccessacademy.com, IamNursing.com, so forth, and many more.
Appreciate y'all. God bless you.
Peace and love.
Okay.